Hey everyone, and welcome to the Brentwood Baptist Leadership Podcast. We're relaunching this podcast with the same focus that we had last year to equip church leaders and teams with practical tools for everyday ministry. Each month, we'll highlight a different area that helps strengthen the whole church staff, all leading up to the Elevate Church Conference this September. Today, we're talking about something that shapes every church, whether we think about it or not, our brand. Not branding as marketing hype, but branding as clarity, what we say, what we show, and what people experience when they interact with our church. My name is Dillon Sherlock, and today I'm joined by Mallory, who helps lead design and branding for us at Brentwood. We're going to talk about the non-negotiables in a church brand kit, how we make decisions, why unity matters, and how clear guardrails actually create more freedom, not less. So if you've ever wrestled with different ministries wanting different looks or wondered how to stay consistent without being boring, this episode is for you. And let's jump in. Mallory,
hi.
Welcome. I'm glad you're here.
Thanks.
Give us a little bit of an introduction. Who are you? How long have you been here? All of that fun stuff.
Mallory, and I've been here over 6 years. I came right in the fall of 2019, right before the pandemic, so that was fun. But yeah, I've been freelancing an illustrator and graphic design a lot before that, but I love working here. I love this team. I've got to see it through a lot of changes, but it's been fun. So.
Yeah. Okay. So you've been here a little bit longer than I have, so you've seen more things.
Yes.
Let's pivot into the brand conversation.
Okay.
Over the last 6 years, how have you seen the Brentwood Baptist brand change and evolve?
Yeah. So when I first got here, I think it was 8 campuses. It might have been 7, but I think we just launched Nolensville. So I think it was 8 campuses. But each campus had their own icon, and each icon was a multicolor. All the ministries had different looks. I mean, there was a lot going on, even though there was definitely a brand, but it seemed like things were growing really fast. And so I got to be a part of how do we simplify this? Because we're going to keep growing, hopefully. And we need some, as you mentioned, guardrails, some specific foundational elements. So I got to be a part of that. I was one of 3 designers. And then as things moved and our team changed, at one point I was the only designer, and now I'm the senior graphic designer with an amazing designer under me. So I've been in a lot of different positions and a lot of change, and I've seen the importance of having a strong foundational brand, because that means everyone's on the same page. And ultimately, if you're all on the same page for the mission and vision of your church, you can't really go wrong.
Yeah, so it's great. Yeah, so the Brentwood Baptist Church is made up of 9 different congregations in the Middle Tennessee area. At one point we had 8 different icons. So each campus had their own logo. Each ministry, say there's probably 10 different ministry areas at each campus. Yep. Each one of those had their own look and feel. Sub-ministry. Yeah. Every, knitting group and the left-handed truck driver group, they all wanted their own logos, right? And so a couple of years ago, we were like, hang on a second. Things are, if we keep growing like we want to keep growing, things are going to get really crazy really quick. And it's going to turn into this whole hodgepodge of they got this because this is what they wanted, and they got this because this is what they wanted. So we decided to simplify all that, pare it down. And so now we're down to a unified icon.
Yes. And even that, we took we went first just to one color.
One color, that's right.
Everyone kept their icon, but it was one color. And and then there was a whole process on what color do we choose, and all of that stuff. But then everyone kept their icon, but one color. And then eventually we moved to one icon. And so most people would not be a part of multiple of our campuses, I guess. But if you happened to pass by or what, you would automatically now know, I think there must be a part of Brentwood because the icons. I mean, that was just a simple step to help unify everything. Yeah.
I love it. When we did that, how was that received amongst staff, community? You're probably more involved in those conversations than I was.
Yeah.
What do you remember?
Well, I mean, I think there were some that were definitely ready for a change, ready for whatever, right? And then there were a few, it's been that way for a while, so hesitant to change. I think that's why we did it a 2-part. We didn't just go straight to the single icon. So because we wanted to help people understand, this is why and everything. But there were some people, who was like, well, no, this was our identity, kind of. And I think this helped the overall thought of, we are one church. We have 9 campuses, but we need to be unified. And that's just, again, an easy way to do it.
Yeah.
But sure, there was some pushback, and there were probably conversations higher than me that had to take place. But ultimately, I think everyone was on board, because how can you not be on board with being like one church?
One church. Yeah. It's the stuff that we talk about all the time. It just hadn't made its way into the look of each campus necessarily.
Right.
So
that's good.
But as you know, brand is definitely not limited to just the little icon that shows up on an Instagram profile or a Facebook profile photo.
Yeah.
Brand is way more overarching than that. I mean, it affects the way that people interact with the church, how things feel when you walk in, the words that are on materials, the words that are on the walls. It affects everything.
Yes.
So to get to that point, we use what we call the 3-question framework.
Yes.
The 3-question framework is, what do we believe? How do we want to be perceived? And what look and tone will cause that perception?
Yeah.
This is something that we adapted from a guy named Tim Newton. Shout out, Tim, if you're watching. I don't know why you would be, but if you are, shout out.
Thank you.
He's over there at Ramsey Solutions, brilliant creative thinker and all of that. And so we kind of adapted a process that they use down there and kind of made that our own.
Yes.
And that was probably, 3 or 4 years ago at this point?
Well, we used it for the overall brand. So we used it for that. And then over the last few years, we started integrating it in other decisions, which I think was huge. But back then, when we did the whole single icon, we did a version of that.
Okay.
And that's how we built what we go by as our brand now.
Yeah.
And so to answer that question, we went to our mission statement. And so any church hopefully has a mission and or vision statement.
Yep.
And so ours is engaging the whole person with the whole gospel of Jesus Christ, anywhere, anytime, with anybody. And so that's what we use to fuel the answers in that chart. And so for us, what we believe or the biblical truths we want to communicate, that's another one that we kind of throw around in there, is that community matters, and that we want to live on mission, and we believe in life change. And so that was easy to figure out. And I feel like everyone could agree with that, because that's our mission of our church. And then based on that, how do you want to be perceived? Well, that being together matters, that doing life together matters. We're action oriented, and we are a growing church, hopefully, and we want to show that. So then what look or tone would show that? We want to show real images. So we want to show our people doing what they do, worshiping together, serving together, which goes into the next one, movement. So we want to be sure everything shows what our church is actually doing, and then keeping it refreshing. So that's the grid right there. That was so easy. And so with visuals, with photos, with videos, we can always go back to, are we showing our real people doing things together, going on mission, gathering, worship, serving, and then keeping that up to date and refreshed.
Yeah.
That is the basis of our brand.
Yeah.
And that was very quick that we just went through that.
Yeah. And so, and just in that, you can tell that it's not just the design that speaks, it's also the photos. So when we work with our photographers, we're giving them that same grid of saying, we need real images of our people. So we're going to invest in that. Every Sunday, we're going to have a group of staff and volunteer photographers going around to the different campuses. And we want action-oriented photos. We want them to look like there's life happening and there's action taking place. We're not just an old church that's just like, we show up and we do the same thing that we're always doing. It's the photos, it's the video, it's the social media, it's the words that are on the page that all feed off of this initial grid.
Yes, what we say, and all that comes together with how people feel. So hopefully, if all of those things are aligned, then they're getting the feeling that we're trying to give when they're a part of a Brentwood church.
Yeah. Okay, so we've seen what happens when teams kind of skip that process. They hire a killer designer or an okay designer. They hire a designer to come in, and this designer can, on paper, do good work.
Right.
but they don't have the framework in mind.
Sure.
What are the risks that run in that case?
Well, I think it may feel out of place. I mean, it depends on how crazy, I guess, but it could be that they design stuff that just doesn't fit anything else. So then that would be, there's a misalignment there. I also think it could miss a personal touch behind it. I mean, I think if you are a church who can't hire full-time designers, contractors and freelancers are great. Like that, of course, some people have to have that. But I really think that having someone who is on staff, who goes to the meetings, who goes to the Sunday, like there's a personal element to that. You know the people in some of these photos.
Yeah.
And then I think if you're going by that grid, you know, like the mission and vision is ingrained in you. And I was even thinking we probably should have these words like in our offices or something because we know them, but we probably, especially as we get to busy seasons, I mean, we're human. We may forget that sometimes, but it is an easy tool to say, hey, wait a minute, guys,
does
are
this
we
reflect
doing
what
this?
we do?
Right.
Yeah.
So it is a nice thing to have. But anyway, going back to if it's an outside, maybe very talented designer, they could get there, but it also might take time that you may not have, or more revisions, or, you know, so I think that if you have this, you take the time to get these laid, then I think it'll come easier and it'll also feel more natural.
Yeah. Yeah. It helps provide consistency, and we'll kind of go into that here in just a little bit. But yeah, I mean, for smaller churches that hire somebody that come in, they can do design, but without kind of the foundational groundwork laid that you were talking about, things can kind of tend to just feel hodgepodged.
Yes.
And that there's no consistency across the board.
Right.
Every single thing that's designed takes its own shape, just depending on, you know, it's Tuesday morning and it's cold and rainy.
Right.
So everything's going to feel.
So it's going to be this.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Okay. How has this framework helped us when we communicate? How has it moved the conversation away from like personal preference and toward alignment around our mission? So
our career in this is very subjective, right? So no matter you're going to have people who have opinions. We are people who have opinions. We're human, we have opinions. But this is a great thing because we can all go back to it and we can make sure that we're all online. Just like I said, if we do realize, hey, maybe we did get off base, we can come back here. What I have found helpful is twice a year I get to present in front of our staff, right, for this process behind Christmas and Easter. What I have found is, one, it's a gift to get to share what our team did, but everyone in that room will not like it.
Yeah.
But they now have heard, this is why we did it. This is how we got there. So they can appreciate it and they'll respect it, even if they don't like it. Like if they hate the color orange, but Easter is all orange or something, they may say, I wouldn't do that, but I totally get why they did it.
Yeah.
So they're on board. And so I think clear communication also for anything we're working on, if we can, helps. Because, and I think we can talk about in a minute, but hearing a ministry's why, listening, that doesn't mean that is exactly what we'll do, but our job is to kind of marry these two things. Like, here's our brand, here's your need. How can we merge them while keeping true to this? And in that way, even in the end, if their opinions are like, I would have done it differently, but I understand where we got there.
Yeah.
I think it helps some of that.
Yeah. Okay. So go back to something that you just said.
Yeah.
We use the grid for our overall branding.
Yes.
What else do we use that grid for?
So we use it for sermon series, which that is a newer thing for us. And I think that it's really helpful.
Yeah.
And for that, instead of using the vision statement or mission statement to answer it, we use the sermon plan. So that's where we're filling out our chart. We've also started the pastors who help write it are starting to come into those meetings. So I think that's been really helpful as well. Just another set to help us fill out this chart. So we use it for sermon series and then big campaigns like Christmas, Easter, if we have a giving campaign, if there's a mission initiative, anything that reaches all campuses, we're probably using this chart. And again, that's really to help our team stay online so that the visuals, the video, the social, how we talk about it, how we promote it, all comes back to that chart.
Yeah.
And then when we get a chance to communicate to others, it helps the buy-in.
Yeah.
Also.
Yeah. What I like about it is that it does provide a level of visibility into the work.
Yeah.
To where, yeah, you're right. Like not everyone's going to be in love with every single thing that we create,
Right.
but it does help for us to be able to say, well, this is how we got there.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, we just had an instance this last week where we created something and it was not the most well loved, but we did have a chart, and we could sit there and we can say, I understand you don't like it, but let us show you how we got to this point,
right.
And why we think that this makes sense in the context of this passage of scripture, and all of that.
Yeah.
So,
and it helped even as I'm tweaking.
Yeah.
I went down a rabbit hole on one design, and then I went back to the chart and I said, well, okay,
maybe
this actually doesn't. So I'm going to set that aside. So even just for me personally, that helped me.
Yeah.
That might be a good idea, but it didn't really go with the chart.
Sure.
So let's pivot.
Yeah. So for smaller churches that are listening to this, I would encourage, even if you're a one-person team, you don't have a whole communications team around you,
right.
I would form some type of group that you can sit down in a room and say, if this is the first grid that you're doing and you just need to establish an overall look for your brand, I would say, hey, get together, a small group and work that out together. And then on the sermon series side, work with your campus pastor or your senior pastor or anybody on the teaching team who could kind of help you pull out some of the themes and all of that and some of the strong like visual words in there.
Yeah. Will help to drive it. And it doesn't have to be, I think we landed on a 3x3 because that has worked really well for us.
Yeah.
But I looked back and a few times we've actually done only 2 across. So don't, those are not rules that you have to live by.
Yeah, that's good.
I would say at least 2, right? Because you can't just have one word. You want some dynamic words. But just putting that down on paper. And again, even if it is yourself, even if you just do it, but then you have someone else who was involved to just, do you agree or anything?
Yeah.
That could be a quick 10 to 15 minute conversation. You don't have to have a half a day where a huge team comes together.
Sure.
It's nice that we get to do that.
Yeah.
But it's just an easy tool that anyone can use.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So one more time, run through those 3 questions and then we'll move on from that.
Yeah. So the first one is, what do you believe? Or especially for the sermon series, we do, what biblical truth are you trying to communicate? And then based on that, how do you want to be perceived? And then what look or tone, if we're talking about words, will cause that perception?
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's great.
Another thing, if you step onto our campus and you start looking at our visuals, you'll notice that a lot of things tend to have a very similar look and feel. We're pulling from the same fonts, the same colors. We call this the 80-20 rule. Can you explain that?
Yes. So basically 80% of our items or things that we produce should be on our brand.
Yeah.
That would leave 20% that can be something else. So when we say the 80%, we have our main font family that we use. We have what we call our Brentwood blue and our grays and our, we have a set color palette and font family. And then we've gone through, and these tweak every few years of like what our slides look like and what graphics in our bulletin look like. But there's a very consistent look to it. And the reason we went really zero-based down on this, because like you said earlier, we had so much going on that it was a lot visually as well. So sometimes you just couldn't communicate what you wanted because visually it was all crazy. So I think we really went zero-based on it for a while. And we got some complaints of like everything looks the same.
Yeah.
And we tried to use photos. It was not photo-based originally. And so I think we've brought that to show, like we said, real people, showing that as much as we can. And we had to get that going for a while. So that's like a cleansing of the palette for everybody. Now that we've done that, we're slowly tweaking and elevating the 80%. And I think you'll always do that because you can change and move and what elements. But that way, again, consistency. Now, we do have some ministries that have their own 80%. So kids, preschool, men, women, those are some examples where they have their own look. And so we can say if it's a generic kids event, it's in the kids 80%.
Sure. Okay.
Or a women's midweek is the women's 80%. But then if there is a big gathering, that can be a 20%. Or student summer is a whole thing of its own, 20%. So we kind of have those rules of when it's 80% versus 20%, but it helps with consistency. It helps quick visual. I know what that is. And then when you do have a big event that's in the 20%, I think it gets more notice, which is what you want. So Christmas, Easter, big campaigns, those will be their own looks, which will stand out.
Yeah, I love it. Who gets to make the call on what's 80 and what's 20?
I think there's a group of us ultimately, but I mean, it's first comes to me, I think, is when I see the task, I immediately know, and then we'll create it. And then someone will be like, well, actually, I think this could be, we're kind of in a rhythm now where from the beginning, if someone like our boss or something can go in, that he can be, well, actually, this might have been an 80%, but let's do 20. But I've been doing this enough that I pretty much know. So I'm pretty much the one who's like, no, that's 80, that's 20, or this is an 80%, but have a little fun with it. You know, that's usually my call.
So when I hear 80% of our assets fit into one look, it feels like I'm very restricted and I have no freedom. So when a minister is like, hey, I know we do the 80% thing, but this is like really something that we need. This is different. How do we make those calls on like what gets to break the brand, and how do we walk them through why it needs to feel consistent?
Well, that's hard. I mean, it is because that happens. And I think ultimately, so we are tasked with protecting the brand. Our team works for Brentwood Baptist as a whole, right? Not individual campuses and not individual ministries. So ultimately, that should be at the forefront of our mind. So again, going back to, all right, let me hear about this event. Why do you think it's different? What are you trying to accomplish? Your audience, all the things, because we do want to know these things because we ultimately want it to be a successful event and we want to communicate it well. And then it's our job, our promotion side, to be like, what's the best way? We feel like as people who do this, the best way to get those results that you need. And then also, okay, you feel this way. It is sometimes a case by case. And like I said, now that we're not zero based, we have a little bit more levity in there. And even in like the kids 80%, we can have a little bit more fun than maybe we did 2 years ago with it. But I think as long as it stays consistent to what we're trying to, it's real people, it's showing movement and action, and it's refreshing within the guidelines of that. I think we can play. And I think it's a challenge for us designers also to be like, no, you got to stay in the 80%, but make it look different. That's a design challenge that, hopefully me and our other designer can say, okay, challenge accepted. Let's see how we can make this still be Brentwood 80%, but it's slightly different. I mean, so I think there's definitely creativity in that, but it is limited in some regards, but it's just then how else are you going to fill it?
Yeah. If you look at like the biggest and the best brands out there, let's take Chick-fil-A, for example. Like you look at their branding, you can instantly recognize when it's a Chick-fil-A asset. And what do? They use two colors. They use red and white, and that's it. Maybe black in there somewhere. Red, black, and white. It's very simple, very pared down. But you instantly recognize when it's a Chick-fil-A ad, whether that's on TV or on social media or print. When you walk into a restaurant, it's instantly recognizable.
And it's trusted.
Right? Because they have spent the last however many years of the chicken sandwich, they have spent so much time in that same look and feel with just slight tweaks along the way, just to refresh it. Coca-Cola would be another one. Like they play with the same color red, actually.
I was thinking of Target, which is also red. Maybe
there you go. Exactly. Maybe we should switch it to red. But they all have this familiarity to it.
Yeah.
When you look at a Target ad or a Coke ad or a Chick-fil-A ad, you instantly know that it's one of those companies.
And you have a feeling too.
Yeah.
Like based on your history with that brand, your experience with that brand, you see it, you recognize it, and you feel some sort of way.
Yeah.
And so hopefully that is happening with us.
Yeah. And so at the same time, you can watch a Coke spot, a Coke commercial, or a Coke campaign on social media or something, and not every single thing is the exact same thing. It's not always just a guy cracking open a Coke.
Right.
There's different storylines that they carry through, but they all carry some kind of consistency and familiarity. And I think that's exactly what we're trying to do here by, it can feel restricting, but it actually gives us more time to come up with like good and creative concepts that can play into it.
Yeah, no, that's a great example, because if you're starting on a blank page every single time, that's exhausting, and it's going to be like just chaos eventually.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay, let's jump into our FAQ section.
Okay.
Let's find one that we haven't hit yet. I feel like we've hit a lot of these. Yeah, we have hit a lot of these. We've covered a lot of ground so far. How do we balance campus personality with church-wide unity?
That's a good question.
So, okay, back to our campus model. We've got 9 campuses.
Yes.
We've got everything from, the Brentwood Baptist as the campus has 3,500 people on a Sunday, choir and orchestra, very affluent part of town.
Yep.
And then we've got, everything from that down to 100 people on a Sunday in a multicultural part of town or in the hipster part of town.
Right.
We cover the entire spectrum of like
Southeast
people
West
groups and all of that. So how do we balance that and allow campuses to have their own personality, but still tie in the unity?
I think a key part of that, and easy in a way part of that, are the photography team and capturing those congregations. If we're using photos from those congregations already, you're showing that personality. I think if it also depends, we have a great tier system of different types of events. So it's also like, if this is something that's on all campuses versus just one campus, well, we can tweak that a little bit more if it's just one of our campuses. But it still is in line with these guardrails that we have. And I think that hearing the people, I also think even the sermon series, it's actually a fun way because different pastors wrote different ones, right? And so that is a way that across all the campuses you might play different types. I think it like helps people get used to different things, right? And so sometimes we may go, well, that may not work at this one, but let's see, and we might be surprised. So I think we also learn new things too. But yeah, it is complicated in that way. But again, I think showing the people, showing video of that, telling the stories from different people helps bring in a part, because each one matters equally, but we also are all part of one church. And so that is ultimately the same, like our main thing.
Yeah, totally. How does brand clarity reduce conflict over time? I don't think it started that way. No. I think when we pared it down, it was like, what do you mean everything's
everything's the same? Yeah. Why don't you care about our unique idea? You know?
Exactly.
And, I think, and honestly, there's probably some conversations where this is just what we need to do. Please trust us and give it some time. Like, I think those are probably some questions. And we probably had some people who were like, no, I don't think that's going to work, but we'll see. Yeah. And that might not have happened. I think we've also showed over time, hopefully, that we can be trusted with how we handle these things, that it's working. I think our team does a really good job of backing it up with data. Not that that is the main thing, but we can say we actually do care. We're not just throwing ads different places, or we're not just like, again, because I didn't have coffee, it's going to be orange today instead of brown or whatever. Hopefully we're communicating. As a communications team, I hope we're communicating, but sometimes, we're busy, right?
Right.
And so I think hopefully if we're communicating, this is why, this is what we found as works. Oh, you wanted to do that. I think the best way to do that would be this way. I think that relationship building helps with that. And then if it's a consistent brand, they'll be able to trust it. Just like we were talking about Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
Hopefully they'll be like, well, we know we can trust the brand. So it's not a thought anymore.
Right.
And then if we need to
Exactly.
have conversations about mixing it up, it may be time again to tweak the 80%. We're open to that, but we need to make sure that it's true to the brand.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. Last question for right now. For those who are at smaller churches or who might not be at the stage that we're at in our brand creation and all of that, what is the first step that they can take towards getting there?
What is the vision and mission of your church? You have to know that. I think if you're communicating anything for your church, you need to know that. So if you make sure you know that, and then I would do the grid like we talked about. And that's such a simple tool, but know what your ultimate goal is with your communications. Make sure that you're on the same page with whoever your pastor is, your executive pastor or whatever. I think, and clear communication.
Yeah.
I mean, you have guidelines, you clearly communicate it and you walk through it. That is the first thing. And then you can build all sorts of stuff off of that main foundation.
I love it. All right. Mallory, thank you for sharing all that. It's a great reminder that a clear brand isn't about control. It's about clarity, trust, and alignment around mission. If you're listening and not sure where to start, go back to the basics. What do you believe? How do you want to be perceived? And what look and tone will help communicate that clearly? Those questions can guide a lot of healthy decisions. This podcast is designed to help church leaders and teams grow in practical, mission-focused ministry. And each month we'll focus on a different area that strengthens the whole church staff, all leading up to the Elevate Church Conference on September 21st and 22nd. If today's conversation helped you, we'd love for you to join us at Elevate. You can learn more and register at elevatechurchconference.com. Thank you for listening to the Brentwood Baptist Leadership Podcast. We're glad you're here, and we'll see you next week.